welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take, your sources, articles, notes, whatever you've got, and really boil them down to what truly matters. Kind of your shortcut to getting smart on a topic.
Yep, cutting through the noise.
Exactly. And today, we're tackling something almost everyone struggles with, that giant, messy pile of digital photos. You know, the ones, file names like DSC00098, just meaningless numbers.
Oh, I know it well. You're hunting for that one great shot, maybe from a holiday years ago, and you're just scrolling and scrolling, guessing from tiny thumbnails. It's like searching for a needle in a digital haystack.
Totally. And you share this great article that really gets into this. So that's our mission for this deep dive. Unpack the best ways to rename, to sort those old photos based on what the article suggests. We'll especially focus on the tricky bits, like what do you do when the metadata is missing or just wrong?
Which happens a lot.
It really does. So if you've ever felt totally overwhelmed by your photo library, yeah, this deep dive is definitely for you. Okay, so first things first. The article argues pretty strongly that this isn't just about being neat, right? There's more to it.
Oh, absolutely, not just about tidiness. The source lays out some really core benefits. I mean, the biggest one, obviously, is finding memories faster. Like instantly. No more guessing game with img4521.jpg.
Right, because img45211 tells you nothing. Zero context.
But the article had that great example of a useful file name. What was it?
Yeah, it suggests a pattern. YYYYMMD, the event name, location.jpg. And the example was 20081031 HalloweenGrandmaHouse.jpg.
Ah.
You see that, and bam, it's not just data. It tells you the year, month, day, what it was, where it was. It's like a mini story right there in the name.
And having that clear name, that connects directly to the next point the source made, which is about sharing, right? It makes it way easier. Totally. Need those specific Halloween pics. You find them like that. And when you send files named properly, the other person gets it immediately. They know what they're looking at. No confusion.
Cuts out all that back and forth.
Exactly. Frictionless sharing. But the point from the article that really struck me was about preserving the emotional value. A generic name is just cold. But 20081031 HalloweenGrandmaHouse.jpg, that brings back a feeling, a specific moment.
Yeah.
It helps keep the story alive with the picture, which is so important for, our personal histories, family stories. Think about showing those photos down the line. The file name helps tell that story.
That's such a great point. It connects the tech side back to the human side. Okay, so that good file name, that's the goal. And the article says, start with info that might already be hiding inside the file itself. Metadata. What exactly is that, and how do you find it?
Right, metadata. Specifically for photos, it's often called EXIF data. It's basically data about the photo captured by the camera itself when you took the picture.
Like the date and time.
Exactly. Date, time, camera model, sometimes settings. But the catch is, your computer usually doesn't show this in the file name automatically, even though the info's baked right into the file.
Okay, so you need special tools to, pull that information out or use it for renaming. The source mentioned a few.
Yeah, it did. For Mac users, Photo XnView was suggested for viewing and editing that data. Then for both Windows and Mac, there's XnView MP. The article highlights that one as being pretty good for batch renaming and just general viewing.
Batch renaming sounds useful.
Oh, yeah. And for, the pros or people with massive archives, Adobe Bridge is the more heavy-duty option mentioned.
Wasn't there a free one just for renaming based on the date?
Spot on. Namexif. Listed as free, and it's built specifically to automatically rename files using that internal EXIF date. So if your camera clock was actually set right for most of your photos...
Which is a big if sometimes.
Oh, true. But if it was, a tool like Namexif can automate a huge chunk of the work, applying that YYYYMMDD pattern we talked about.
Wow, okay. So you could potentially take a whole mess of DSC files, run Namexif, and suddenly they're all dated correctly in the file name. That's pretty powerful.
It really is. It's about using the information that's often already sitting there, just hidden.
But, and this is the big but for so many people, myself included, what do you do when that metadata is just gone? Or it's totally wrong, like the camera clock was off by 3 years, or it's an old scanned photo with no digital data at all.
Yeah, that's the reality check for tons of older digital pics and basically all scans. The article gets practical here, suggesting some detective work. First step it mentions, check the photos right next to it in the folder.
Ah, the surrounding files.
Exactly. Often, photos imported together are from the same time or event, so the ones just before or after might have the right date or clues that help you narrow things down.
Okay, using the sequence as a clue. Makes sense.
Simple. Right. Then there's using visual clues in the photo itself. Does it look like winter, summer? Are there birthday candles? A Christmas tree? You can often get a pretty good sense of the season or even the specific event just by looking closely.
So become a photo detective.
Kind of, yeah. The article also mentions checking video timestamps if you shot video around the same time. Apparently, video files sometimes keep their original timestamps more reliably.
Interesting. Yeah, I remember having this folder from a trip ages ago. Dates were all over the place because I'd used two cameras, forgot to set the clock on one.
Classic problem.
Right. But just looking at the clothes, the light, finding a few key photos I knew were taken on a specific day. That helped me sort out the whole week. Saved hours, probably.
That's exactly the kind of situation the article's advice tackles. And it does mention that some newer platforms, I think it specifically names a life portrait, can actually help with this guessing game. They might suggest estimated dates, especially if they recognize people or places.
Using tech to help the detective work. Okay, so you've done the sleuthing, you've figured out the rough date, the event. Now you've got, say, 50 photos you want to rename. Using that pattern, YYY event name. How do you do that without clicking rename 50 times?
Yeah, that would be painful. Batch renaming tools are your friend here. And the article points out options built right into your OS or easily available ones. For Mac users, it says you can do it right in Finder. Select the files, right-click, choose Rename.
Oh, really? In Finder?
Yep. And use the custom format option. You can add text, like the event name, and it'll automatically add a counter or even the date you specify.
So if I had those 50 picnic photos from, say, July 10th, 2023, I could select them all. Type in 2023-071 Picnic Park, and Mac adds Marich 1, Negus 2, Redic 3 automatically.
Exactly that. Massively speeds things up. For Windows, the source recommends more dedicated tools like Bulk Rename Utility or Power Rename. That second one is part of Microsoft Power Toys, which is free. These give you tons of control.
Okay, useful tools. And the article had a tip about this, even if you can't get the full perfect name.
Yes, prefixing. That's such a good tip. Even if you don't nail the full YYYMMD event name location for every file right away, just adding the year or the main event name at the start of the file name helps hugely with sorting later on.
So it groups them visually when you sort by name.
Precisely. Consistency, even with a simpler pattern, is way better than chaos.
Okay, speaking of sorting, renaming the files is great, but if they're all still living in one massive pictures folder, it's still kind of messy. The article really emphasizes folder structure, too.
Absolutely crucial. That's the next layer. Folders give your nicely named files a home, make the whole system manageable long term.
And what kind of structures did the source suggest? Were there examples?
Yeah, some common ones. Chronological is popular, like Photos 2008, October. Simple, easy to follow.
Okay.
Or you could go by event type. Photos, events, weddings, 2015, Jessica Tom. Or maybe by person. Photos, people, grandpa. The article stresses picking a system that feels logical to you, how you think about finding photos.
Makes sense. It has to work for your brain. And there was a pro tip about this. Something about not needing perfection immediately.
Yes. And honestly, probably the most vital piece of advice for anyone starting this, don't let perfection stop you from starting. Just begin with a structure, something that seems reasonable, and then this is key. Be consistent.
Right. Stick with it.
Stick with it for new photos coming in and chip away at the old stuff when you have time. Even just sorting by year, then maybe months inside that, that's a massive leap from one giant folder.
That's definitely reassuring. It feels less like climbing Mount Everest.
Okay, so we've got use metadata if you have it, play detective if you don't, use batch tools for renaming, build a consistent folder structure. The article also talked about how platforms like a life portrait can help, especially when that metadata problem is really bad. How do they fit in?
Right. The source positions these platforms as sort of a complementary tool, especially useful when the manual methods or the basic tools kind of hit their limits, maybe with really old photos or huge volumes.
A life portrait, for instance, was mentioned because it apparently uses AI to look at the photos and suggest dates, which could be super helpful if it recognizes, say, a specific person across photos taken years apart, helping you place them even without EXIF data.
So it's using AI to help with that context identification we talked about doing manually.
Exactly. And the article also mentioned these platforms often have tools for bulk editing things like location data, and crucially, they help you organize within their system by timeline, by people, by places.
So you don't necessarily need every file perfectly named and foldered before you start using the platform.
That seems to be the idea. You can leverage the platform's features to help impose order and make things searchable, even if your underlying file structure isn't perfect yet. It offers another path to getting your photo history organized and accessible.
Okay, this has been super practical, really useful stuff. So if we boil down the key takeaways from this deep dive based on that source, number one is don't get paralyzed, just start small.
Mm,
One folder, maybe. A
okay.
key event.
Yeah, definitely. And use those tools, Namexif, XnView MP, when you do have good metadata. Let the computer do the work.
Right. But when the data's missing or wrong,
Hmm.
embrace your inner detective. Look at surrounding files, visual clues, whatever context you can find, and use batch renaming tools, built-in ones, or utilities like bulk rename utility to apply those names efficiently.
And get that consistent folder structure going. Whatever makes sense to you, just stick to it going forward. Consistency is king.
And lastly, if it all just feels like too much or the metadata gaps are huge, the article suggests looking into platforms like a life portrait. They can use tech to help fill those gaps and organize based on what matters: timelines, people, places.
You know, what's really interesting when you step back is all these steps, renaming files, making
Mhm.
folders, they sound technical, right? But they're not just about digital tidiness. It's really about actively curating your own story, making those memories easy to find, easy to understand for yourself, for others, maybe even generations down the line. You're turning chaos into, well, into a meaningful history.
That's a really powerful way to put it. Organizing photos is organizing your history. And yeah, as the article suggested, for anyone ready to take that next step, maybe to share or preserve that history, checking out something like a life portrait could be a logical next move.
Indeed. Finding the memories is the first step. Making sure they last is the goal.